Why should I address an American protesting, self-immolating to protest the genocide? Why should I address that? Why is it important that an American does it? Why is it suddenly something that merits my specific attention because an American in the military does it? Why does that make it so important that it absolutely has to, like it's the most pressing news item of the year or whatever? White American soldier does a protest, and I personally have to specifically address that. I don't believe that what the guy did was bad or anything. He obviously did something that I don't personally agree with, but if that's how he felt was the only way that he could like reconcile his involvement in the US military with what's going on in Gaza, then okay. I also am not a fan of you idiots coming in here because you're Americans who are obsessed with America demanding that I respond to that. Why should I care? I'm sorry, why should I care? There are protests against the genocide every day. Most of them are happening in Gaza. Most of the acts of resistance are happening in Gaza itself. You don't hear about them at all. You don't get headlines at all. You don't come into my stream demanding that I talk about them at all. It's just incredibly sad that all of you can't see beyond your own noses. You come in here and you just spam that. You spam it like it's the most important thing to ever happen. I'm sorry, but it's not. I'm not saying anything about the guy specifically, what he did, but you come in here and you demand that I talk about some American taking an extreme, obviously self-harming act of protest against what's going on in Gaza. Why is that something that's so important that all of us have to talk about it? Why is it so important that you come into this chat and you demand that we talk about it? I think it's incredibly sad that the USA is such an incredibly fucked up country that what it takes for you to care about something like this is for someone who's in the military, someone who chose to make themselves complicit in genocide, then deciding to basically kill themselves because of that choice that they made earlier. Because you worship the military to such a ridiculous extent that to you, that this guy was in the military somehow makes what he did more important. For one, you need to learn not to consider things more important when they're expressed by a member of an active duty member of a genocidal military such as the United States military. And for two, in general, you need to not care about things more when they involve Americans. That's my advice to you. If you want my opinion on that as a form of protest, there's much better things that you can do if you're just planning to die anyway than that. The actual most interesting thing about it is how it's being framed. And you have media outlets, you have like commentators who previously have praised people who self-immolated in Tibet, for example, and now they're coming out and they're like, oh, this guy, you should not self-immolate as a form of protest. It's horrible. It's this guy was obviously mentally ill because they support Israel. And it's just another excellent example of how liberals don't actually have any sort of real concrete beliefs or anything like that. They just adapt to pretend to believe certain things based on whatever they believe to be most convenient for them politically at that moment in time. Just so happens that when someone in Tibet a year or two ago self-immolated, that was good. That was because it was more amenable towards their geopolitical goals. An American self-immolates in front of the Israeli embassy against the genocide in Gaza. He's just mentally ill. What he did was bad and unproductive, and the reason for that, for them, the only logical reasoning behind it, as you can see, is that it just so happens to be more in line with their geopolitical interests to say that about him. You know, like if a Uyghur or something self-immolated outside the Chinese embassy, they would be praising them. They would be talking about how heroic they are. But because it's someone taking the exact same act of protest against the Israeli genocide in Gaza, now they are against it. Now it's just something that a mentally ill person did. Now it's not something to praise. It's not heroic anymore. Anyway, that's my take on that on that issue. That's all you're gonna get out of me. I'm not gonna sit here praising and say, remember whatever his name was. Remember this hero.